were discussing the fact that even though Jackie Robinson was the first African American to integrate Major League Baseball, he was not the best player in the Negro League. The Negro League is where African Americans were relegated to play baseball before Robinson's selection in 1947. For sadly, segregation, or the separation of blacks and whites, was real. For segregation meant that you stayed in your place. It meant that you didn't eat, you didn't drink, you didn't go to school, you didn't play sports with whites during that period. And so Jackie Robinson's selection to the big leagues was indeed a big deal. But historians who knew the game of baseball also knew that Jackie Robinson was not the best baseball player in the Negro leagues. For many will tell you that Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson were considered the best in Negro baseball during the 1940s. However, they were overlooked because of their temperament. They were overlooked because of how they carried themselves. And I think the point is this. I think the point applies to not just baseball, but to divinity as well. And it is this. You may not be the best in what you do, but when God chooses you, no one can deny that God chose you and that God has his hand all over you. As I thought about that, it made me think about one of the characters in our text today. It made me think about Peter. Peter wasn't the best out of the bunch of the disciples, but God chose him to be the one that would go first. For Peter would be the model upon which the church was founded. You remember when Jesus asked, "Whom do people say that I am?" It was Peter who raised his hand and hollered out, "You are the Christ, the Christos, the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And right then and there, Jesus proclaimed to the world that what Peter said, flesh and blood did not reveal it to him, but the God who was in heaven. And Peter from that point on was on the fast track. And so as we pick up this particular passage, as we pick up this particular text, we see that Peter is front and center again in this pericope, this piece of scripture. For right after Jesus performed the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus had just fed 5,000 men plus women and children. Most scholars put the number fed that day well over 15,000 men, women, and children who feasted upon 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. And the text points out for us that just after that miracle, the first thing on Jesus' agenda was to go on vacation. Jesus was about to go on vacation. The text confirms that Jesus was about to dip. Jesus was on his way to Miami. Jesus was on his way to the other side to get away, to pray, to think, and to refresh himself for the journey that God had assigned him to. And so the text confirms that the disciples were told by Jesus to get in the boat and go ahead of him, and that he would catch up to them a little later. But the Gospel of Matthew says that a storm arose out on the sea. That's what Matthew's Gospel says, that a storm arose out on the Sea of Galilee, which was not unusual. For many anthropologists will confirm that that particular body of water was known to produce sudden, dangerous, and deadly storms. And this was the case the night that Jesus put his boys in the boat and told them to go ahead to the other side, and that he would catch up with them later. And one of the things that I noticed about this development on the Sea of Galilee was that the disciples did nothing to cause that storm. For not all storms, not all of our problems come about because we did something wrong. I feel a strong need today to stress that, because there are those that would make you and I feel that we are altogether responsible for the storms that come about in our lives. And that is just not always the case. For sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, storms just come. Sometimes stuff just happens and you didn't necessarily do anything to cause it or to create it. It just happened. And I'm discovering that There's some bad preaching going on in America. There's some bad theology that's being taught in pulpits and in Bible classes all across the world. I'm discovering that bad theology will have us thinking that all the bad stuff, the bad news, the bad sicknesses, the bad economy, the bad weather that came to you was because of you. And the fact of the matter was, you didn't do anything to cause the storm. In fact, you were where you were supposed to be, doing what you were supposed to be doing, and a storm just broke out in your life. For the trip part was that the disciples didn't do anything but what the Lord told them to do. For the Lord told the disciples to get in the boat. The Lord told the disciples to get out on the Sea of Galilee. The Lord told the disciples to go ahead and get into the storm. The Lord told me to take that particular road. The Lord gave me that particular job. The Lord gave me that house. The Lord gave me that child that's wearing me out. The Lord told me to go in that particular direction. The Lord told me to go to the other side. And so, brothers and sisters, the disciples are just following the directions and the instructions that were given to them by the Lord. And as they followed, a serious, a deadly storm broke out. And the storm was not anyone's fault. What's so strange for the disciples is that a few hours earlier, they witnessed one of the greatest blessings in biblical history. The fact that God took 2 fish and 5 pieces of bread and fed over 15,000 people. They just witnessed that. And a few hours later, all hell is breaking loose in their lives. Just saw God do something tremendous and magnanimous and magnificent. And now they get an eviction notice. Just saw God. Just saw God make something out of nothing. Just saw God come through and do something spectacular. And now they in trouble. One of the lessons I've learned from this experience is that after a major blessing, sometimes there will come a major testing. After a major blessing, look out, because there may be coming a major testing. In fact, after a breakthrough, oftentimes there will come a major breakdown. I know I'm on somebody's street corner this morning. I know I'm all in your business. I know I'm reading your email. I'm in your mailbox. You got a major promotion, a major relationship, a major car, a major house, a major job, but then a major problem broke loose in your life. Promotion wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. Her promotion wasn't what we thought it was going to be. Car was totaled in an accident. Lord have mercy. The house fell through. Who am I talking to this morning? The job that was promised to you ended up closing down. The relationship that you were going crazy over did not work out. And you didn't do anything but what the Lord told you to do. You were just going ahead to the other side to meet the Lord on the other side. And a storm was waiting on you when you got there. Anybody ever left church and a storm was waiting on you at the house? I can't get no help in here. Anybody ever left work and as soon as you got in the car there was a phone call and the storm was on the other side of the line? I can't get any witnesses in here. Anybody ever left the house and went to the office and as soon as you got to your cubicle all hell was breaking loose? But guess what? I got some good news for you this morning. If the Lord brings you to it, guess what? The Lord will bring you. I wish I had somebody in here that could testify that if God brings me to the storm, is there anybody in here that'll say, my God will bring me through the storm? Oh, yes, he will. You miss your place to shout. The Lord is in control of every storm that comes your way.